Shortly after sunrise, I located the bear. It resembled a deflated balloon, but it was a large one, about 400 pounds. Its lifeless, bloodless hide sank over the ground. Everything that ought to have supported it appeared to have been scooped out by somebody reaching within. No claw marks, no bullet holes. Empty, but unspoiled, just muscle and skin. I knelt down and poked the lifeless skin with gloved fingertips. I couldn't quite put my finger on why it seemed incorrect. I have nearly 20 years of experience as a park ranger. Thus, I've witnessed everything from inebriated youths to those seeking to earn some extra cash while hunting during off-season. This, however, was not poaching. I reached for my radio. Ranger Powell here, reporting a cadaver on Crooked Pines North End. My bear is an adult male with no visible injuries, but I swallowed. It has had its bones removed. Totally. Static hissed, then Ranger Gibson's raspy voice. Powell, repeat that last sentence. It has been deadened, I said. A long silence. Take a copy of that. Hold on tight. I'll take it further. I didn't pay close attention. I was not going to stay with an inside-out bear. Before returning to base camp, I took a few photos, forwarded them to my supervisor, and noted the GPS locations. Deep country was what Crooked Pines was. It was a really quiet old place where sound didn't travel well. I used to be stationed farther south, near Erin Creek, but this was my third season patrolling these forests. Before going to Crooked Pines, I had witnessed strange things. A deer that has been stripped of its meat, yet is still standing. Trees that were bleeding viscous, clotted sap from new, open wounds. I once came upon a neatly placed mound of elk teeth in the center of the trail, which appeared to be an offering of some sort. However, this was something else, God Almighty. With boots crunching through dry needles and my breath puffing in the cold fall air, I continued to walk the now familiar trail. The sky was a bruised purple as the sun began to descend below the tree line. It took maybe 30 minutes to walk back to camp. I heard it while daydreaming of brewing a hot cup of coffee over the fire. There was a gentle clatter, clatter, clack. I paused and listened with my eyes narrowed. Quiet. My hand strayed to the hunting knife on my belt as I turned and looked over the tree line. Nothing changed. I shook my head, let out a breath, and continued to move. After 10 minutes, I heard it once more. Clatter, clack, clack. This time closer. Like the rattling of bones in a bag. I felt chilled. I had heard trees snapping beneath something large, twigs snapping, and leaves rustling. However, that wasn't this. This had a better rhythm. It had a haunting, almost melodious sound to it. With my heart pounding in my chest, I accelerated the pace. I couldn't shake the sound. There was no question about it. I was being followed. The road was covered with deep shadows as the trees became denser. I grabbed my flashlight and flicked the switch with my thumb, and I saw it as the dazzling flash of fake light appeared. Just at the edge of the waning light, a form moves between the trees, spindly and tall, composed of only bones. I had no idea how many. Dozens? Hundreds? Like a hideous puzzle, the off-white marrow was shifting, twisting, and clicking and clacking. Its chest was a human rib cage, the skull of an elk sitting in place of a head. With every step, the vertebrae of a bear's enormous spine flexed as it curved along its back. Deer femurs, wolf jaws, and a group of finger bones strung together like beads were among the stray fragments hanging from its limbs. And it was approaching me on foot. I staggered back, gasping for air. As it took another stride, the flashlight beam faltered, creating ragged shadows. Click. Make a noise. It lifted one long, twisted limb toward me, half animal, half human arm. I ran. My face was beaten by branches. I felt my rucksack bouncing hard on my shoulders. It was faster now, the bone rattle turning into a terrible scraping sound, like something hollow and dry dragging itself over the soil, and I could hear it behind me. The solar-powered dusk to dawn lights at the base camp were near. As the darkness crept in around me, I could make out them flashing amongst the trees. Then, crack, pain. Searing and white-hot, it ran straight up my left arm. I fell forward onto my knees and shouted. My fucking hand, my hand. It was deserted. The skin remains intact. The muscle. Tendon. The bones were gone, but there was no blood or wound. My fingers were weak and useless, curling inward like deflated balloons. I sensed the emptiness. There was a horrible, gnawing emptiness that reached my wrist. With a gasp, I turned to see the creature huddled a few feet away. From its outstretched palm, my bones, my own fucking bones, dangled. The metacarpals still knotted together in a ghostly echo of my hold. As though thinking of me, it cocked its elk-like head. Then, almost in a respectful manner, like a robber putting stolen goods in its own arm, it took my bones. Sincerely, I have no idea what transpired after that. I don't recall arriving at camp. I don't recall entering my tent. However, I do recall the noise outside. A deliberate, sluggish clatter-clack. Bones become bone to bone, constructing a new object. That took place a month ago. The physicians are unable to explain it. I mean, the missing bones. I told them it was just how I woke up. I didn't think the rest of my narrative would be believed. Crooked Pines is a sizable location. It's an odd location. You should be aware of that before you go there, whether you're hiking, camping, or working. You should be aware that losing the bones in your hand is not the only thing you could lose.